Hey guys, welcome to The Inquiry Club. It's a psychology podcast that makes research and clinical insights fun, relatable, and relevant for your everyday life. And today we're looking into, we're asking the question, if every time we chase pleasure, are we quietly training ourselves in our brains to feel more pain? And so what if that scroll, that drink, the next achievement, it really isn't rewarding us, but raising the bar for like what we consider to be enough? Ultimately, we're kind of talking about the concept of our brain's desire for homeostasis or balance. And so kind of what's happening to our brain when we live in a culture that's built on more and more consumption, and how is that pushing our brain out of sync? Specifically, we're kind of looking at this book by Anne Lembke. It's called Dopamine Nation, and it argues that our constant pursuit of pleasure has left us collectively dysregulated, trapped in cycles of craving and crash between being readily available pleasures of the world and then kind of the come downs of that. I literally just finished this book today and have not stopped talking about it. But I love Anne's book so much because one, she is the medical director of addictions at, let me read her actual, not to do her. She's the medical director of Stanford Addiction Medicine. And she essentially works with a lot of addicts to she's a psychiatrist, but she helps regulate like their addiction treatments. And so she uses throughout the book the extreme accounts of addicts and their subsequent treatments to be almost an example of how to treat and create regulated balance for our own compulsive or addictive behaviors that just happen because of the way our world is built and a lot of the readily available resources. Okay, I feel like an interesting place to start could be if you, because I was telling Summer, I feel like I recognize my more compulsive and maybe like addictive behaviors from reading this book. Summer, do you have any that stand out for you?
Yeah.
Or that like you want to share? I don't know. Oh gosh.
Basically, in essence, Christina just asked if I have any addictions, which is perfect way to kick this off.
Publicize it.
But literally, we were just chatting before, like running through like kind of what we learned about this. But I know that I'm so sensitive to dopamine, and I feel there's little elements where I've like realized it and can always catch myself. But even still, I always think, oh, doing the easier thing right now. If I'm sacrificing for something greater, for example, I have a big project due this week, and so I've kind of let myself get out of routine just to, have an easier time or whatever, make things a little bit easier on myself. And without fail, it ruins my day every single time, and it sets me back so much further. And one habit specifically is listening to music right when I wake up, and pretty much any kind of music, but the worst one is always EDM. And if I do that, I cannot stop, and it almost makes my base level of dopamine for the entire day like something insane. And then it's like can't do any work. I'm literally then scrolling on Instagram Reels while thinking about this thing, while watching a podcast, while like watching YouTube and doing a million different things, and it destroys my day every single time. And I swear it's horrible. It doesn't go back to normal unless I take a shower or go on a run or literally go to bed. Like sometimes I'll take a nap and then wake up from my nap just to like have a normal approach to a day.
Yes, I get that. Well, it was interesting how she kind of starts the book is this concept of the way we run from pain. And a lot of times, I guess she, in 2016, was going into Stanford and was going to give a talk about to student mental health or something, give a clinic. And when she was waiting in the lobby before being let in, the 4 brochures that she saw that were available for people to pick up were like habit of healthy happiness, sleep your way to happiness, happiness within reach, and 7 days to a happier you. And she said within each brochure they kind of had some sort of different formula of like how to achieve a sense of happiness. And and essentially it was like this modern messaging of like modern messaging that signals happiness as the highest good and the highest, most elevated commodity in some ways. But I think almost like what she's depicting through this book and almost what you explained, kind of a perfect example of you're listening to music in the morning is that the ways that our world pushes for us to experience happiness and experience pleasure is almost creating the opposite effect. And I thought it could be interesting to, I remember thinking like why, I think if you originally hear the pursuit of happiness, yeah, why isn't that the highest form of good, or why isn't that the thing we should directly be seeking?
Yeah.
And I think your example is a great one. She gives, because she works with addictive patients, it's interesting to follow the logic into like extremity, and she does with a lot of the patients within the book. One of the case studies was this boy named Kevin, who his parents like brought him to come see her, and he's 19 years old, and the problems they listed were such that he wouldn't go to school, he couldn't keep a job, and wouldn't follow any of the household rules. And all of us are like dang boy. But he described his life philosophy as doing whatever he wants whenever he wants, and that kind of extended to whenever he wanted to play video games, he would stay in bed as long as he wanted to and get up whenever he wanted to. If he wanted to have sexual relationships, he would just go online or find some outlet to do that. Yeah. If he wanted to do drugs, he would do drugs. And at one point she kind of asked him like, how's that working for you, Kevin? And he just kind of responds, and she said for the first time showed like a sense of almost like remorse or shame, and was like, not well. And she said that over and over again she would see this where people with kind of every advantage of life are unable to function regularly with, and then they also additionally have like crippling depression and anxiety, and they are technically given everything on a silver platter. And I guess she was also making a point of a lot of the parenting styles lend more towards helping and removing barriers, when actually it creates an environment where people, you know, it's that classic thing where almost wild animals that were held in captivity their whole life, when they're released, they kind of like don't know how to survive and actually live in a way that's functional, natural environment. It's almost like the way that many parents have like created dysfunction, and just the commodified world has created dysfunction within us because it gives us everything. But some of the things I thought this was really interesting that I thought it'd be cool to like, not cool, horrible wording for what I'm about to share.
I thought this would be cool.
Thought this would be cool. But it talks about doctors, almost like an example of like the way we expect pain to be removed is how a lot of doctors' roles nowadays are expected to like take away pain. And some statistics that were really interesting to me within the book said that like more than 1 in 10 Americans are on antidepressants, so that's 110 people per 1,000 people. Prescription of stimulants, which include Adderall or Ritalin, in the U.S. doubled between 2006 and 2016, and that includes kids younger than 5. Prescriptives for sedative medication for benzoxyphene.
These are really cool stats, Christina.
I know. I was like literally like horrible verbiage. But interesting that it's like, okay, prescriptives for sedatives, Xanax, Klein, I don't know how to say it, Valium, I forgot how to say the other one, but they're really addictive drugs. They're on the rise by 67% from 1996 to 2013. And then often they're prescribed with the stimulant that I listed before, like Adderall or Ritalin, because people are so stimulated that they need like a Xanax to go to bed, or a downer. And even in 2012, I mean, I think the opioid crisis is very widespread knowledge, but like in 2012 alone, enough opioids were prescribed for every American to have a bottle, and opioid overdoses now kill more people than guns and car crashes.
Oh my gosh.
And it's interesting because I think it's very clear the world's a really hard place to live in, and no one faults another person for almost needing or wanting a sense of reprieve from our own thoughts, from the news and media, and just like a relentless cycle of problems. But to use your example, or I think my examples of things that I've noticed were my compulsive behaviors is or like addictive tendencies is towards caffeine, and then towards like YouTube, which is like, why does that feel cringy to say, but whatever. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's like the
so
thing
fair,
that
though.
it's the thing that I
Yeah.
kind of have in the background.
Like going all the
And
time. Yeah.
yeah, and I felt a deprivation. But she said even if you don't think these are pleasure seeking, it's often like a background noise, and it like
Yeah.
makes our brain feel fuzzy.
Yeah.
And the question for anybody who's listening
Mm-hmm.
is that if you were to strip this away, what would your baseline feel like? That is almost one of the indicators of compulsive or addictive behaviors.
Whether or not it's, addictive, if you could even feel normal without it. Because I feel like I fall into that of not thinking caffeine or
Yeah.
music or watching podcasts while I work or anything that
because it's
is,
socially acceptable.
yeah, it's so
compulsion,
socially
yeah.
acceptable and it's like so, it seems so not deep at all.
Yeah.
But like whenever I do take those things away, I do feel like a shell of myself. Like I don't
Yeah, you're like
feel
bored. You're
normal
genuinely
at
like
all.
bored.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I literally sit at this little desk and like almost tweak because it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
feel like I can't do work unless I have my perfect environment of how I typically am.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I feel like we talked about this over the last couple weeks. I've been better about just drinking water instead of caffeine all the time, or just eating 3 meals at the table instead of having a snack here all the time. And it
Yes.
has helped so much to reset my brain and almost realize, oh, those were, like stimulants to the point where it increased my baseline to where I was
Yeah.
like unproductive without them, even though it
Yes.
doesn't feel like an addiction.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like I wrote down some like natural escapes that she even like talks about in the book,
Yeah.
just to help people think about their own. It would be, she even said a trendy cocktail or kind of having to half a beer to come down post work
Yeah.
or something. She really gives an interesting example of romance novels for her that she
Okay,
kind
I
of
did hear
created
about
this. It started with Twilight, and she loved Twilight and like this like high tension romantic relationship, and that led her to have to read like all these romance novels, and it started getting so invasive that she couldn't even go to bed. Like she had to read a romance novel to go to bed, and it was almost like more and more and more until eventually she was like dissatisfied with it, but she just wanted to get to the point where it's like they kiss or like, whatever they
Yeah.
do. And I thought that was just an interesting example because I feel like romance novels are very, for girls specifically, I feel like it is a widespread thing.
Yeah. Well, that is interesting because it's like I have friends who always watch TV before bed or always
Yeah.
watch videos before bed. And
Yeah.
like I feel like in college everyone did that too, is phone time before bed. That's just such
Yes.
a normal thing. But it is
Yes.
almost, you wouldn't think that that's a problem until you try to do it without it.
Without. And then you
Yeah.
can't go to bed. Or,
Yeah.
she gave the example she like genuinely couldn't go to bed after it, or
That's so
she found
interesting.
herself withdrawing from family vacation and reading her romance novels, or in between her work reading romance novels, and she literally didn't even notice it as a problem. But yeah, of course, addictive drugs, immersive video games are one, food binging, kind of like binge watching reality or series TV, echo chamber of social media, YouTube, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, Substack, any of those.
Yeah.
Or even probably more aggressive ones, pornography. But
No, yeah.
I
It
think
is
it's,
so interesting. And it's like all these things are like, I feel like in recent episodes, even still, we've talked about like friction environments versus frictionless environments.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because it's like all of these are industries that directly profit off of making the most frictionless experience possible.
Yes,
And
totally.
like dopamine doesn't thrive with friction. And so it's like
Yeah.
on top of our own like very human tendencies of like wanting instant gratification and wanting to
Yeah.
be distracted, on top of that then we have these like industries that directly profit off of that. And so it's like
Yes.
the more friction that they're able to remove from Instagram reels, or how perfectly they're able to curate your algorithm for you, or anything like that. Even I pulled up YouTube the other day and it was like they were reading my mind. Like it was
I
every
know.
single
They're
video
reading
that
my
I've ever
mind. They
watched.
got
Yeah,
that
I
written
was like,
down.
this is amazing. I literally thought about you because you watch YouTube so much more than I do. Like I watch
Yeah.
Instagram Reels. This is like more my
Yeah.
thing. And I was like, they're gonna get me. Like, they're totally, I was like, I'm just
Yeah.
totally not. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But it's like they remove so much of the friction. They make it so easy
Yeah.
to, and then it's like the whole point of it all is that you forget what you're doing, or you forget that you're not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, like, your brain is so jammed with dopamine and, like pleasure sensitivity that you raise your baseline, and then that's the new normal for your brain, and then anything less than that is completely dissatisfying, or you can't function as normal without this new routine.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that kind of brings to like the whole crux of her whole, almost the whole book or the whole concept she's kind of trying to unpack is that like relentless pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain leads to pain. It actually leads to pain.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the result of kind of the concept that I mentioned before of like homeostasis, that our body has this like relentless and intentful pursuit to be balanced. And so I think it would be helpful to maybe pack the role of dopamine, almost what it is, because I feel like,
love.
I don't know, I feel like everyone kind of knows generally what it means.
It's thrown around, but
It's thrown around,
I don't know how intentfully it's thrown around. Like, it could, we could use it
Some
up
people are
and
just tossing it.
Yeah. I've been guilty of tossing it in the past.
They're not
as well.
intentionally throwing it around.
I'm using the words dopamine detox as a punchline.
But essentially dopamine is a neurotransmitter that she almost described it like baseball, essentially, that we have a synapse that holds the dopamine, and then we have like receptors that are catching the dopamine. And it's essentially how our body processes rewards. And most neuroscientists kind of depict it to be the most important measure because it's actually kind of the thing that depicts motivation to get the reward. It almost values the motivation of wanting something more than the thing itself. And it's interesting, like evolutionarily, that was really advantageous because the need for reward would like motivate people to go get food, to mate, to get water. And so there was a study where mice, when they essentially removed the ability to create dopamine in their brain, or like to have their receptors like send and receive dopamine, they would die from starvation with food like inches from their mouth because they didn't have the motivation to go get the food despite it literally being right there. And so it kind of zaps our ability when we have decreased dopamine to want and seek out X, Y, and Z. And then it's also a measure for kind of the addictive potential of behavior and drug use. So the more dopamine that's released based on a certain substance or how fast it releases leads it to be the more addictive. So for example, they tested the base rate of dopamine released in, I think it was like a mouse or a rat or something, and there's kind of the basal rate that your brain normally is releasing dopamine throughout the day, but it would increase for chocolate, for example, by 55%, or nicotine by 150%, and cocaine by like 200 something percent. So it would like start releasing it faster and more intensively. And she kind of unpacks this because she talks about this idea of the pleasure pain. It's almost like it being on a pendulum or like a seesaw, that they talk about it being located on opponent process mechanism. So they're on like these opposite sides where one goes up, like the other goes down. And it goes back to like the concept of homeostasis, that the body doesn't want to be tipped for too long or too hard on one side. So every time we lean towards pain or towards pleasure, there's almost like this reflex reaction in your body. And so the way that the most like clear form that I found was by this man named Richard Solomon and John Corbit, and it's called the opponent process theory, that any prolonged or repeated departure from neutrality has a cost. So the cost being an after reaction that is the opposite in value to the stimulus. So you have caffeine, and like whenever we have caffeine, it blocks the neurotransmitter that tells you you're tired. And
Yeah.
so you're not tired for the given amount of time that the caffeine's blocking the neurotransmitter, but when it
Yeah.
fails, you get all the
All the
essentially
tired.
all the tired, like essentially all the tired at once hitting
Yeah.
your neuroreceptors, and that's the quote unquote crash that you experience afterwards. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
That's
the
actually like that
yeah.
phrases it so well. That's so digestible to understand of even ice cream or things like that that it's you you never watched The Substance, did you?
I understand it because I needed to know why it was so gruesome, apparently, but like
So
I
gruesome.
looked up an in-depth understanding of it.
Yeah.
Kind of give a
Literally
unpack it a
horrible.
little bit, just
Yeah.
so people
Well, The Substance is essentially
body.
almost thriller, psychological
Yeah.
thriller type of movie, but the whole thing of it is that she's chasing this eternal youth, and so she buys this black market drug basically, and like it creates. She's 50. I always forget if it's Demi Moore or Demi Moore. Demi Moore.
I think it's Demi Moore.
Demi Moore.
Yeah.
Essentially, she's 50, and she, gets this like younger version of herself that's Margot Qualley. Margaret Qualley? I'm gonna get all these names wrong, but essentially
It's like
like makes
slightly
like a
off.
younger version of herself,
Yeah.
and she ends up like stealing the youth from the other one. And the whole premise of it is like what you take from one, you lose on the other. And I always think about that. That's such an irrelevant point.
Yeah.
But I always
No, but
think
that's
about that
exactly it. That's
because
exactly.
it's like such a visual of like you use caffeine to benefit in this, but later you're gonna feel the crash of it. It's like you use ice cream to boost your dopamine, to have a happy hit, to have, the high on one side, but
Yeah.
you're gonna have a stomach ache, you're gonna feel lethargic, you're
Yes.
gonna not feel great. And it's like it could be as intense as cocaine, or it could be as like, okay, well, I blasted my brain with dopamine by listening to
Yeah.
EDM at 7 a.m. I'm gonna not be able to focus because I have, it's what you take from one, you
Yes,
lose
I'm so
on the other.
stimulated that my brain needs to
Yeah,
lower the receptors to calm down.
to calm down to be able to
Or,
focus on anything else.
yeah, that's why when you're eating a bag of chips, every single chip feels like essentially less. You have your given proportion, but then
Yeah.
every time you eat more, it's
This is
not only that it becomes
you almost
not
want
as fun
more.
to eat it, but
Yeah.
the need for it the need for more increases because you're trying to like re-chase that high essentially from the
Yeah.
pleasure of the initial chip. So
The
it's
initial
like the more you chase the pleasure, stimulation, novelty, the more
Interesting.
forcefully it actually swings back. And since homeostasis is the end game for our bodies, the cost of the high is the low that follows. So it's kind of interesting in thinking about, she talks about like it actually starts to really change our brain if we really repeatedly engage in these kind of activities of pleasure
Yeah.
seeking, and
It
it will
genuinely
actually
is our brain
adapt.
chemistry,
It's
right?
called neuroadaptation. And so with repeated exposure to the same or similar pleasure stimulus, the initial deviation, and it's interesting because deviation itself or stress is categorically like deviation from homeostasis. So whenever we are deviating from like our homeostasis to the side of pleasure, it actually gets weaker and shorter and the after response of pain gets stronger and longer. And so
Interesting.
she said
That's
her
off
example,
photo addict, like
yeah,
addict response.
yeah, it's so interesting. But then you can kind of recognize in yourself moments where that behavior took place, or that
Yeah,
I
no,
can
1000%.
see myself, or when I really was listening to podcasts all the time, there almost became a point where there was no podcast that would even entertain me, even if it was the subject that I really enjoyed. Or I think when you're watching a show or something, you kind of keep watching, and then you kind of feel kind
It
of grossed
doesn't hit
out.
as much. Yeah.
It doesn't hit.
I'm not that
And
entertained by this. Yeah.
yeah, she gave the example of her romance novels to becoming, essentially, she said, yeah, it reached a point where she wasn't even satisfied with the romance novels. And she would just, like skip to that one point when
Yeah.
she knew it was the heightened moment.
Yeah.
There's this phenomenon that was really interesting based on kind of this balance pendulum thing that was seen in individuals with high doses of long-term opioid therapy. So if they had OxyContin, Vicodin, or morphine or fentanyl, like high doses of that for long periods of time for chronic pain, they only experienced pain that had gotten worse. A lot of them were coming to her reporting that their chronic pain's actually like amplified, and not even it amplifying in the specific areas they originally had it. It was like almost expanding to new parts of their body. And that was because it's called opioid induced hyperallergesia, which no one needs to know that. So, but essentially it was their brain tipping to the side more now of pain, she explains in the book. And when they actually tapered off the opioids, many of them experienced improvement to the pain. And this was like a widespread phenomenon. Was a lot of people experience this.
Interesting.
And yeah, so it's just really, that's obviously a more extreme example, but I think it'd be interesting to do kind of I wrote down another one of social media. Almost you get the pleasure phase is that you get likes or DMs or engagement, and you get a dopamine spike from the social reward. But then the after reaction is you're in your room by yourself and you feel empty, or comparison fatigue when you log off or something. Yeah. And then the pattern
fulfilled.
Yes. And then the pattern kind of hits that the hit feels shorter, the crash is longer. And so you actually check again to just like escape from that feeling again, or you post again to escape from that sense again. And then it kind of creates another cycle of that. Last one was like alcohol, that if you get like increased dopamine and you feel more relaxed and like sociable, then the after correction is like decreased dopamine, in like increased dehydration, irritability, like aka what the hangover is. And then the pattern is that you almost feel like you need it more in a social setting, and then you form like this tolerance and dependence on it, which is really
I'm sure like since you feel so terrible afterwards in the crash, like if you weren't to be self-aware to the pattern of dopamine and the spikes and crashes, it feels so personal. You know, it's like I can picture times like posting on Instagram and then feeling the height of it all, and then when that tampers off and you have the crash of it, it feels like a personal thing of, oh, this is a reflection of me. I'm not social enough to continue to get those likes and things. But it's like that doesn't make sense because you're not posting. So like obviously you wouldn't get that. But like, or you know, you post more often, so it's less exciting for other people and they don't comment as much. Yeah. And it's like it feels such a personal reflection of yourself. Or even like with alcohol, like I'm sure if you feel so much more sociable and like socially successful almost, and then you know the direct juxtaposition of how terrible you feel with a hangover, then that almost like it probably feels a false positive or like a false confirmation bias of see, I'm so lame, I have to drink to be more interesting socially, you know. And it's like you're not recognizing it as a dopamine crash from a stimulant high, you're recognizing and projecting it onto like yourself as a character.
Which is so like perfect way to explain it. It just is like a lack of and it's not even like a fault of anybody, it's literally the chemical makeup of our brain that if you do these things, even if it's without intention, because the world commodifies it, because the world kind of says that's
so normal,
the way you
that's
live,
what everybody's doing,
then your brain reacting to it almost creates an addictive cycle or like a compulsive behavior towards it in a way that's super unhealthy. And so she talks about like people ending up being in what she calls a dopamine deficit, that this is more for people that like if they're truly categorized as addicted, their brains change in a way that they have decreased dopamine receptors and decreased sensitivity to throwing out dopamine to the circuit rewards. And what that looks is experiencing life at a lower, more dulled frequency, just like baseline. Because essentially it can never, it's trying to regulate your body that's been getting so many highs to just have to be base level more relaxed. So it's interesting in the sense of like, okay, so how do we even correct that? And what it really leads to is a lower curiosity for life whenever you have a dopamine deficit.
It sucks.
and it sucks. And you care about people less. One of the examples she gave, I love the research that she has behind it, but we get a lot of dopamine a lot of times from learning and curiosity, and that's like one of the most intrinsic ways that you can get dopamine in everyday life. And there was an experiment with rats where they put them in essentially like this little maze that had all these little almost high dopamine learning opportunities is what you call it. Like they could explore its little whatever and like get a little reward, get a treat or something. But when they were, and normally if they go through, they would like want to explore and learn and go through all of it. But when they were injected with meth, which is kind of crazy, they're doing the crazy things to rats and mice out here, which I guess like better them than humans, but it's these poor guys are going through it like
that's not easy.
I know it's not easy. But they essentially failed to show any sort of excitability, and the meth was attributed to limiting their learning potential. And so maybe if you're feeling like a sense of, like I've definitely noted that myself, of like if I'm overstimulated or overstimulated in the sense that like I'm always listening to music when I'm walking, or I'm always listening to like a podcast, or that I almost can't think. We talked about this, like we can't think clearly, and I don't even know what my goals are. I don't even know like what I need to get done. I'm just a little bit less considerate probably of others.
Well,
it's just an interesting,
truly feel like you're coasting, and it's like you're not even consciously coasting, because again, it is all things that are so socially acceptable that you probably wouldn't even look to like listening to music constantly or podcasts as like the fault of it. So it's like a different kind of like awareness to how these things are specifically impacting you, because like you have to try a day, or you know, they say like 7 days without it, or like a month. I just watched a video on like a 7-day dopamine detox, but I think it's a full month to like break a cycle like that, to like even feel what you would be like without living in like a constant state of like crashing from something. And even like Mark Manson in the Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough book talks about like the hedonic treadmill of just constantly feeding your pleasure sensors. And like he talks specifically about how like suffering is happiness and happiness is suffering, because you wake up and you suffer by, you know, intentionally inciting pain through a workout or a cold plunge or, you know, cold shower or like long walk without music, like those things that are like painful almost, like they're just definitely not like the pleasurable option. But like those will fulfill your long-term goals more than waking up and eating M&Ms, or waking up and, you know, like having super sugary coffee that has 500 calories and will leave you wired for the rest of the day and have a horrible crash. You know, it's like feeding the suffering results in long-term happiness and closer to your goals, versus like feeding the instant gratification and feeding the instant happiness. You'll end up not at all where you know, I think would hope to be, which is like that's a hard reality, because you don't even really realize, again, with all these things that are so socially acceptable, that it's actually really setting you back in your
counterintuitive.
Goals. Very counterintuitive.
Well, that's what she talks about in the book too, of like how do you reset. One of the ways to reset is the pressing on pain side resets our balance to the side of pleasure. So it's like you can actually, if you're over indexing on pleasure, you're going to experience more pain, but alternately if you lean towards pain, then you can like that adverse reaction. She gives this case study of this man named Michael that she like describes as like he's sitting across from her and he's like very handsome, like very charming. He has kind of the Silicon Valley story where he was rich by age 35, married the woman he loved, and essentially became extremely addicted to alcohol and all these kind of drugs. And he, in remediation, started taking, like, the biggest thing for him was like, how do I redirect in a way that's non-addictive? And he started like taking
filling it with something else.
Yeah, because that's one of the even in this thing called self-binding that Anne talks about that I would love to go back to. But first, almost just he became addicted to alcohol, and then he started taking tennis lessons just as like a way to fill his time. And whenever he would get back, he would be like sweating for so much longer and was experiencing like a lot of pain, so to speak. And his coach recommended for him to just take colder showers and just help with the sweating. And he really liked the feeling of like cold showers, and led him to, he almost got like a high sense. And then he would take a cold bath, and then it led to him almost, before it was a thing, doing like a cold plunge.
A cold plunge,
And she said Michael inherently unlocked this kind of, he created this unlock of leaning into his pain side that's really hard to stay in the water for 2 minutes. But the way that your brain reacts is that it's overcompensating to create balance. So it's saying, oh, we don't have enough of like what we need. So it's gonna, I don't know what the exact chemicals are that it's like injecting in your brain, but there's this study of, it's called hormesis, and they actually study the benefits of small doses of painful stimuli, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. And one of the things, it gives weightlifting or exercise or cardio. What it's doing, it's immediately toxic to the cells in your body, and it leads to increased temperatures, nauseous oxidants, and it restricts your oxygen level, and has glucose deprivation. But when it's doing that, the restriction actually tells your body, oh, we need more of this. So it leads to the endorphins then being released at a higher rate because your body thinks that it was restricted. So that's what leads us to be in a good mood. Cool. Yeah.
Well, literally, I know for years my sister's always said intentional cold exposure raises baseline dopamine, and I've not known the science behind it, but that makes so much sense if you're inciting pain intentionally for your brain to recognize a deficit and then pump more dopamine, so your dopamine or endorphins or whatever it may be, so that you have a baseline of being happier.
Yes, and that's what was happening with the people with the opioid situation, where they were on the level side of pain. When they stopped taking it, their opioid receptors were not getting the actual natural opioid type stimuli that their body can create. It wasn't creating it because it was getting it from a pill. So then their body started creating it, and that's why their pain went down in the receptors.
Yeah, such a testament to your body always wanting to be in a homeostasis too.
Yeah, we're like, thank you.
Or like on the negative, but also positive side of like, if you want to take ownership of it, you can take ownership of it, and it will result you being a happier and more fulfilled person.
Yeah.
That's
so it's
like,
interesting.
Honestly,
I know, it was encouraging.
Yeah,
we're not stuck in
we're not destitute.
Our behaviors.
Yes. Yeah, and especially like,
go for it.
I don't know. I'm just thinking about, honestly, I was thinking about it earlier of like Western diet and like Western societal cultural norms. And honestly, we've talked about this before, but like kind of almost like a random glamorized shift to the cold plunging and the extreme play and the marathons and all that kind of stuff. And it's like there's an inherent unlock going on of people pursuing pain just more than they have in the past. But it's interesting to almost be able to like point to science behind it, you know?
Yeah, it's probably a level set of all the pleasure they're getting from the ease of our commoditized world, you know?
Commodified, world
commodified, sorry.
Commoditized.
I don't know what I said, honestly, but...
Camaraderie.
Camaraderie. Sabrina Carpenter.
When Sabrina Carpenter comes out, everyone's like, whoa, the Angry Club has Sabrina Carpenter. And we're like,
yeah, we're a big deal.
This is just a little something for your dopamine levels. Don't worry about it.
Literally. She kind of goes through in the book this idea of, she calls it self-binding as another means of restricting your dopamine levels, or almost just like the recovery in terms of, she goes through what's the acronym dopamine with her clients that are addicted to substances. But I thought it was really interesting to almost unpack what it would look to go through your own addictive behaviors and look at, I feel like randomly back to the cold plunge thing, I did try to take a cold shower after reading like all the positive effects. I need to work up to it because I literally couldn't do it for more than like 5 seconds. It was like my worst nightmare. It was my worst nightmare.
Yeah. Every time that I hear my sister say like it increases baseline dopamine, I'm like, oh, I should do that. Horrible.
Terrible. It's really hard. And I guess that's the whole point. But But anyway, she gives this example of this essentially recovery coming from a stage of abstinence in the beginning. And I think you mentioned it. Normally, a month is the normal stage of abstinence that actually allows your brain dopamine neural pathways to rewire and to reset. But she kind of goes through this thing called dopamine. In the chapter when she goes through it, she's working through it with this girl named Delilah who was in junior high, and she would smoke pot from the
Delilah
moment
from junior high.
I know. I know. I'm like, Delilah. Hey, girl. But she would smoke pot from the beginning. Like, literally, she'd wake up, grab her vape pen, smoke. And from the moment she woke up to when she went to bed. And she listed, like, all the things she was doing. And it was extensive. Like, it was extensive. Yeah. But essentially, she kind of started by gathering the D for... The acronym is dopamine, but, like, the D stands for data. So, like, how frequently was Delilah using? She would be, like, every morning, every hour, every da-da-da, like... And then the objectives, she would ask, like, Delilah, like, why do you need to take marijuana? Or why do you need to smoke pot? She said is the only thing that helped her anxiety. So that was her objective for the addiction. And then the problem was... she always asked, like, what is the problem that comes from any sort of addictive or compulsive behavior, like, has almost like an adverse reaction. So for her, she said she was having, like, issues with her parents. I was thinking even of myself, like the YouTube example or, like, the caffeine example, is that I never want to be, like, addicted or reliant on anything. So the idea that I would, in a circumstance, need caffeine to operate really goes against almost like my view of myself in a way that I don't like. And then the next one was like abstinence. So yeah, it says it takes a month to even 2 weeks. It says you can still be in a dopamine deficit state. But she was saying it's hard for people to think a year in advance or several years in advance. Like, they don't want to abstain in the moment. They're like, I'll do it later, but I'm not going to do it now. And she kind of went through her conversation with this young woman, and she was like, oh, do you still want to be smoking cannabis like this in 10 years? And the girl was like, oh, definitely not. She's like, oh, what about, like, in the next 5 years? Do you want to be doing that? She's like, oh, definitely not. Like, what about in the next year? Like, a year from now, do you still want to be doing that? And she was like, yeah, I guess not. But it kind of was like, why not start now? And I thought that was a really, honestly, powerful line of thinking, because even in terms of patterns towards viewing relationships or viewing maybe drinking habits or social media habits, it's almost like it feels easier to think about. I think we've talked about this, that your future self's going to make better decisions.
My future self is going to be very different, but they won't be.
But they won't be. Yeah, it's like, it's just a culmination of who you are becoming right now. Like, and you have to make, like, active ways to change that. But the M stands for mindfulness. I thought this one was really potent too. That she told Delilah, there's nothing you can do to take the pain away that's not also addictive. Since we don't want to trade one addiction for another, I'm asking you to tolerate the pain. And in the midst of tolerating the pain, it's a chance for you to observe yourself separate from your thoughts, emotions, and sensations, including pain, without judgment, which is what she defines as mindfulness. And I thought that was really helpful, because even I told Summer now I'm weaning off caffeine for 2 weeks. I'm having matcha, and then I'm going to do no caffeine for a month. But even yesterday I had such a bad headache. But something about it felt more okay, because I knew I was going to just have to tolerate the pain for like 2 weeks.
That almost like the pain is inevitable.
Yeah, it was almost like, all right, like, let's get through this a little bit.
Yeah, let's do this faster. And I feel like I've done that a million times, of trying to wean off caffeine, and then the headache sets in, and it's like, oh, well, I might as well. I just need to fix this headache or whatever it is. But it truly is like, what you gain, you take away, and what you take away, you gain. So you're gonna feel that pain inevitably. So you're choosing whether you feel that pain today or in a year or in 5 years. And then that is when your life will actually change. Yeah, and it felt almost a sense of agency in a way that was kind of exciting. But I like the idea of being able to not judge your emotions, but observe them objectively, like almost from a third party. She gave this example that I thought was really interesting, of whenever she had her first child, she had almost this kind of like crazy intrusive thought of her smashing
the kid's head on like a
Oh, yeah.
counter. And she was almost like so rattled by the thought of it that it scared her so much. And really when she unpacked it and like practiced a sense of mindfulness, that she just realized that was almost her biggest fear. And
Yeah.
it was not like a result of her just like crazy thoughts
Intrusive thoughts. She
coming.
doesn't have
Yeah.
control over her mind.
Yeah. But really a reflection of just like a deep sense of fear that she had to want to protect and like love and care for this kid. And I think I just thought about all the times in my life where I've had these crazy intrusive thoughts where I'm like, oh my God, that was crazy. Like you want to kind of judge yourself and be like, what
You're like,
in the
that was
name? How did that
not-
just come to my brain?
Yeah.
And really it's just an opportunity to analyze yourself and not necessarily judge yourself. And I thought that could be just a really helpful practice. But
Yeah.
one that I kind of judge, I feel like mindfulness feels very jargony, like self-helpy type term. So I felt kind of like an evasiveness to or aversion maybe is the better word, wanting to like
practice
lean into it. Yeah.
Yeah, true. That is so true though, because I always do kind of lean away from that. But it's if you're thinking about your thinking, you're gonna make better decisions. You know, even if it is. I always kind of feel I have my own agency. I don't have to. I'll control this. But it's what are you controlling? Are you controlling your thinking about your thinking? You know, and then it's like you're gonna end up in a better place if there's like
like you're thinking like almost you trying to control your thinking is you essentially not being reflective. Just
and being like I'm above that. Like it happens naturally for me, and it's like okay, nothing happens naturally for anybody. You do have to practice like agency and ownership, no matter what it looks like, you know.
And she talks about this idea of almost like we a lot of times sit in a place of denial, and it's this kind of disconnect between like the prefrontal cortex that processes long-term decision making, that processes like our future self, that can almost even narrate our own experience. And so she talks about when she was reading the romance novels, she kind of had this awareness that there was a problem in her actions, but like at the same time, like she didn't and wasn't able to like acknowledge it.
Like this is truly a problem. Interesting.
And so she's like almost like knowing your behavior, but then not like calling it out was this weird discrepancy. And the formal term is denial. And a lot of times for people that are in addiction, they work really hard to repair the connections, the neural pathways between their brain's ability to narrate the activities that it's doing and what it's actually doing in the moment, the actual actions that are happening. And I think that's exactly what mindfulness kind of helps connect back, is me being aware of my own actions and mind in a way that's conscious.
Yes. To connect this, I was thinking about this earlier, but to connect this to our boredom episode, we talk a lot about like the default mode network being when a lot of autobiographical planning happens. And autobiographical planning is self-narration of like kind of processing through, taking inventory of your life at current, thinking for the future, like, and it comes from any type of like meditative activity, maybe like a mindless thing that you're doing with your hands or a puzzle or driving for some people. But when you're addicted to constant stimuli, you're never entering default mode network because you're never essentially unlocking the boredom that's getting you to it, because your brain is so jammed with dopamine that you're probably never autobiographical planning, and then you're never making it to that final step of like really thinking through and processing your life, which is so interesting that the two connect.
I know.
I love that.
Both of us like smiling and like rising.
No, literally, really. We did it.
It essentially like you're like putting a pause between like just this like innate desire and then like your actions to like let yourself breathe, your brain breathe in some ways.
Which it is even like, oh wait, finish your thought.
Oh no,
letting your
finish
brain
your
breathe.
thought because I'm gonna go into something.
You're gonna take us in a different direction. Well, I was even telling Christina earlier, like when I was reading Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough junior year of college, I was also training for my first marathon and also a vegetarian for the first time. It was a brief moment, but I was essentially like
you defending it.
Don't come for
Love
me.
it, love
But
it.
I loved it. But it was essentially like being vegetarian was such a cool experience because it was the first time I had ever experienced any kind of restriction. Because like I'd always grown up in like a very free household towards food, and then I always ran a lot, so I never like really self-restricted. And it like restricting in the way of not eating meat made me so much more self-disciplined in every other facet of my life because I like kind of essentially proved to myself that I could like have agency over a decision like what I'm eating or a decision of like
Yeah.
abstaining from meat, you know, even when it would be so easy to eat it when all my friends are going to
Yes.
Chick-fil-A. And then it
Yes.
literally like I look at it as my most self-disciplined era of my life ever, and I'm constantly chasing that high of getting back to that.
Yeah.
But I was like
Yeah.
so productive, so self-disciplined because I was constantly proving to myself that I could do it, and I saw it bleed into every other kind of decision, school, job, work, everything else that I had going on. And so it is cool, even as an encouragement of people who are maybe eating and staring down the barrel of like focusing less on stimulants and trying to lower their baseline dopamine and those types of things. Of like the object emotion stays in motion. Of once you
Yeah.
start making those decisions and proving
Yeah.
to yourself
It's
that you have
contagious.
agency over the controls, yeah, it will be infectious the rest of your life, and then that's when you can experience like true life change. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I wrote down a quote from Immanuel Kant, who we had mentioned him in, I think, our hospitality, something in reference to hospitality, I think, in terms of forming great friendships, one
Oh,
of our
yeah,
earlier episodes.
fun.
But he had like the rules of a dinner party. But one of
Yeah.
his quotes was like that when we realize that we are capable of inner legislation of the natural man, or of inner legislation, the natural man feels himself compelled to revere the moral man in his own person.
Oh,
And it's
interesting.
almost just this idea that we begin to respect ourselves in a new way when we
Yeah.
see that we're capable of self-control
Yes.
and have a sense of trust within our own self. Kind of what you're talking about, like in that season of life, it was almost empowering to know you
That you
had
had
an inner
control. Yeah.
legislation to not eat meat despite
Yes.
the cultural narrative, you know, the culture around
Yeah.
you. We're literally from Oklahoma. It's
I'm from
meat's
Oklahoma.
nation.
It's
They're
an
barbecue day
agriculture
and night.
school. Yeah.
Yeah,
Barbecue day
it's
and
almost
night.
offensive. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um,
no restaurants have vegetarian options. It
oh
was
my
trying
gosh.
times. Yeah.
Yeah, like honestly, what did you eat? But
I know.
it was one of the things that even was interesting. She talks about in self-binding. There's like physical strategies, chronological strategies, and then categorical strategies. And so some of the things she talks about, like if you're restraining yourself, what does it look like to come down from these dopamine things? Is physical strategies is like space, locking something away. For me, I don't have Instagram on my phone. I just go online unless I'm uploading something to Instagram. So
Watch
it's like a
Pornhub.
physical like space thing where I'm like,
Yeah.
if I'm in a line at Target, I can't just be on
Can't just open it
Instagram.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't just open it up. So it's physically like removed. Or if someone's over consuming alcohol, like you put it in a chest or whatever, you know, like that,
Yeah.
a chest. I don't
I
know
know. Like,
anyone
who
that's
has
put anything
alcohol?
in a chest when I don't know enough about.
I don't know enough about alcoholics.
Apparently, never had alcohol in the house growing up.
I'm kidding. Christina's outing
That's
herself.
hilarious.
Christina trying to act normal at a social event is like, so where's y'all's chest?
So where do you guys keep your chest?
Where do you guys keep
That's
your chest?
crazy.
That's crazy.
Uh,
Pretty funny
well,
though.
anyways, the second one is the chronological strategy. So time, so uses of time and limits. So restricting your consumption to times of the week, month, year, or like kind of narrowing your consumption, like will actually narrow your use. So never before Thursday, never before
Yeah.
5 p.m. or whatever. And it creates like, yeah, it just essentially like creates a more
Windows.
narrow window. It's like intermediate fasting where people like who intermediate fast, they're going to have less calories just because there's a smaller window they're allowed to eat or whatever.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, and then the other one is categorical strategies. So it limits our consumption by sorting dopamine into different categories. So there's subtypes of things that we're allowed to consume versus those we don't consume. So people that she indicates this thing called drug of choice, and it helps us avoid our drug of choice, and also triggers, and any triggers that lead to the drug of choice, like that means removing it. So for probably a lot of alcoholics or individuals that are addicted to, I don't know, any sort of like genuine drug, like they can't even not only have obviously alcohol, but they can't have probably certain things that would trigger them to have alcohol. Or maybe if you do drugs, maybe alcohol was your trigger, so you can't have alcohol because it triggered your use of drugs or whatever. And so she interestingly like indicated a lot in our kind of capitalistic environment where there's been a lot of taboo items that have been transformed into socially acceptable commodities, cannabis becoming medical marijuana, or smoking becoming a vape because smoking is looked down upon. But I kind of thought back to what you were saying. A lot of modern culture views constraints as bad. Any constraint is unhealthy. But for many of the people in the case study, one that really stood out to me, the guy who she mentions kind of as a through line, he was a sex addict. And it's pretty, in some ways it's pretty disturbing. I think she uses him for that example of like how crazy, distorted and perverted it kind of got. But he took extreme measures to rein in his sex addiction, essentially. And things that people would literally think were probably like very, very restrictive. But one of the things that she wrote was, released from the grips of overconsumption, he was able to interact with other people with joy, curiosity, and spontaneity. Binding ourselves is a way to be free. And I thought that was just an interesting, maybe counterintuitive thought for a lot of people that maybe who lend more towards like wanting freedom or lending towards a narrative that having anything is the best way of living. That I think if it's actually limiting your sense of freedom, peace, or curiosity or spontaneity and joy, then it's actually worth. It's actually not freedom at all.
Like you're paying a much larger price for it at the sake of pretending to have autonomy, but truly being a slave to your dopamine receptors.
Yeah, genuinely. And so I thought that was really cool just to see someone that, kind of was on the extreme scale of that and how almost they made their way through. And
like experience like true life change.
Yeah. And maybe like a good place to leave it is like one of the ideals of radical honesty that she talks about within the book. And it's a concept that comes from AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's one of their central like precepts of, and I think it's just really almost radical in a sense, because I think we talk about self-reflection all the time like on this, and I think at the core of psychology it's almost like a questioning of oneself and others and the why behind what you do. But I thought it was interesting, kind of one of the areas she talks about is that whenever you are honest with other people and you experience a pro-social kind of like maybe you did something that you consider shameful or hard or like even addictive compulsive, then you share what you did with someone else, their acceptance of you then rewires your brain to think of that as a reward and thinks of honesty as a reward. So it perpetuates honesty. And so she gave the example of the man that was the sex addict throughout the book. He had a relapse and his wife kind of found something that maybe was an indication of his relapse, and he wanted to lie to her but instead told her the truth, and he thought she was going to leave him and he was so scared, but whenever he ended up sharing the truth, she just hugged him and said, "Thank you so much for sharing that with me." And in his brain, like, he was now being not only healed in some ways, but his neural pathways are rewarded for honesty. And I think when we start being honest with ourselves and with others, we then experience the reward of that, and it leads to intimacy, and so it leads more towards human connection versus isolation, which is the result of loneliness, or the result of lying and not wanting to confess.
Which is awesome and such a good challenge to even like be able to bring that to people without a bow on it, and not having rationalized or justified. I feel like even when people are wanting to be held accountable by something, it's, oh, but I'm figuring it out. Oh, but it's okay. Oh, but, it's like I'm doing better already. And meeting someone exactly, inviting someone into exactly where you're at without a bow on it, and allowing yourself to be met there, and then allowing the neural pathways to reshape from there. That's actually so powerful. And then, has a million more positives for your life. That's
totally
a sweet, encouraging note.
Yeah. It's good. It's really sweet. So share something with someone and be honest with yourself first. That's kind of the first step. The fourth step of the 12-step process for the AA people was to do a searching and fearless moral inventory, and then to confess it with someone else. So
well, that's the
fifth step is
next
confession.
2-week break for the Inquiry Club, us as a team.
Yeah.
All of us
as a
out
team.
there.
I love it. All right. Bye, guys. See you in the fact check. Teacher. It's almost like I just remember them slamming something down and being like, enough.
Enough. I can't do this anymore. Mine was in 4th grade.
I remember my 5th grade teacher. She was lovely, but I just remember she would have enough moments, and
enough. I know. I had that in 4th grade, but she had like gallbladder surgery, and we honestly like did have a ton of troublemakers in the class, and someone like literally took like a number 2 pencil and like stabbed the pumpkins that we were like supposed to get to carve, and I remember her losing it. And then I remember taking it really seriously at the time. I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. And then later,
I was the kind of person that would like try to make eye contact with the teacher and be like, these kids.
What does that say?
I'm like 5 years old. I'm like, that's crazy.
I'm not like that.
No.
I had such a similar experience.
But I was so talkative. I always talked in class. I remember I have a vivid memory of, I think you were quiet probably.
I was quiet.
Yeah. You're right. I remember having a vivid memory of just realizing I can wait to speak. Literally remember having that first thought. It was a novel idea, like this, like the this can wait moment. I'm just gonna wait.
I'm like still waiting on that. Like haven't had that.
Never dropped.
Get these girls a podcast.
Mention that when she wakes up in the morning, plays EDM music. This is my favorite part. It's like reading back to you.
It's like, what on earth did I say? Most of the time it's like whatever, but jeez.
Okay. All right, guys. Welcome to episode 10 Fact Check. About how your pursuit of pleasure is actually causing you pain. So to dive right in, it's a fact check for Summer. Summer mentioned that when she we love that I just get to recite back to Summer like things she said.
Things I said. And it's like, does Summer remember saying that? No.
I'm gonna start adding things you didn't say.
We have to play like 2 truths and a lie.
Yeah. And now you have to fact check me like it's a double entendre. I don't even know if that's the correct word for that, but okay. Summer mentioned that when she wakes up in the morning and plays EDM music, she experiences a very clouded attention span and feels very distracted. In a 2019 study, they compared slow, medium, and fast tempo and no music while driving. And medium tempo kind of helped maintain attention over long periods of time. Fast tempo helped with fatigue, but it was shown to significantly deteriorate attention after long periods. So overall, just to say, and kind of depict maybe the science behind why your EDM music might cause like a distraction, is that the fast tempo music may boost energy, but it can actually create a harder like ability to focus over time and can make mornings like more chaotic and distracting. Sorry, Summer.
That's like literally so true. I need to stop doing that.
Yeah. Summer also mentioned the frictionless environment, which we referenced in episode 7, The Psychology of Parasocial Relationships. And this originally came from the ideation of Kyla Scanlon, and it was like a snippet we referenced from the Ezra Klein show that's under the New York Times. So check out episode 7, but that's kind of when she mentioned the frictionless environment, what it's referencing.
Perfect. So Christina referenced Anna Lembke's Dopamine Nation and mentioned a study in which the rats with altered dopamine levels lost all motivation to eat, even when the food was placed right in front of them. And that's correct. So this finding comes from classic experiments in the 1980s and 90s by neuroscientists Kent Berridge and Terry Robinson, who showed that when dopamine production in the brain's reward circuitry, specifically the nucleus accumbens, is disrupted, rats still like food but no longer want it. And they had the physical ability to eat but lacked the drive to reach for the food, sometimes starving despite its presence. So this research established the distinction between liking pleasure and wanting motivation, showing that dopamine fuels pursuit rather than satisfaction itself, which is a theme central to Lembke's book. Christina also mentioned that the basal rate at which your brain normally releases dopamine, the data referenced Anna derived from the studies by Nora Volko, Roll Wise, and others. So the stimulus is approximately, the stimulus could be like food, sex, nicotine, cocaine, and then the approximate dopamine increase for those was food 50%, sex 100%, nicotine 150%, and cocaine 225%, and methamphetamines 1,000%. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But honestly, it makes sense. And like, food would be like a 50%. Like, I'm like,
Mine. So true.
50% more motivated by food.
That really resonated.
Oh, that's so funny.
That's so true.
So the basal rate or tonic firing rate refers to the background level of dopamine activity and what the brain maintains even with no specific rewarding or novel stimulus is present. So think of it as a steady hum of dopamine signaling that keeps your motivation, attention, and the emotional balance stable throughout the day. When you experience any of the previously listed substances or experiences, there is a phasic firing following the steady hum example, which would be the blaring music for a moment. And she also mentioned how caffeine wears off and suddenly you feel tired or groggy. To break this down more intently, the experience is because caffeine works by blocking the adenosine receptors in the brain. That's what I thought. Adenosine is a chemical that naturally builds up and signals your body to rest. Caffeine's chemical makeup is similar enough to adenosine to bind the receptors. While caffeine is blocking those receptors, your neurons stay active and alert. But once the caffeine is metabolized, all the adenosine floods in, binding to its receptors and making you feel sleepy. At the same time, dopamine and norepinephrine. Norepinephrine. Norepinephrine.
Anemone.
Boots and cats. The activity drops back down to baseline, which can create a mild comeback or fatigue or fogginess. Essentially, your brain's natural fatigue signal finally catches back up. That's so interesting.
I know.
And also,
Summer, take notes.
Terrible.
I know. Like, my coffee wean is working though because I didn't get a headache today. That's
huge.
Literally
That's
huge.
That's huge.
But I'm still on my matcha grind, so we'll see post matcha what happens. But But honestly, it was like encouraging. So I was like, okay, I'm feeling pretty fresh.
That's awesome.
Which never been done before. But
this is my first day out here.
Never felt fresh.
Never felt fresh before. It's like so true.
It's so true.
Oh, it's so true.
Summer referenced the concept of the hedonic treadmill, drawing from Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up. The idea is that people quickly return to the baseline level of happiness after a positive or negative life events. In other words, no matter how much pleasure or success we gain, our happiness tends to stabilize over time. We adapt to new circumstances. This concept helps explain why chasing external rewards like material possessions, status, or even achievements often leads to only temporary satisfaction. Not too many things today, which is awesome.
Not too many things today, which kind of slayed.
And
also, Christina directly referenced the book, so...
I did directly reference the book and then went deeper into studies. So that's what we get when we read. So it makes a ton of sense. Yeah. That's what we get when we read.
Do you have any life updates for us?
Life updates. I sent this to Summer. So I used to work in fashion.
Oh, yeah.
And went to a fashion event at a place called Bergdorf Goodman, which is like essentially like it's a very luxury department store. And it was just a wild experience because one, like I'm literally in such a different world now. Like I nanny in the mornings and I go to school in the evenings and like everyone's just wearing like normal clothes. But the brand was, I don't even know if I should say the brand just for, I don't know, in case.
Vibes.
But it was essentially like luxury goth. I'm not joking. That's the way I sent it to my parents and their immediate responses were, wow, very black.
Wow. Not a lot of color going on here.
But I got to catch up with some coworkers beforehand and it was really sweet. And then we walked over and I feel like I've been having some really crazy interactions with just random strangers. And like this man, we were kind of dressed up. So, you know, when you see someone walking and they're kind of acting a little crazy. And I'm like, I'm definitely like visible to their, I can't
We're about to have an interaction.
Right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he literally looked right at me and the person next to me, she is a little bit older. I feel like she's like an older sister in the corporate world. And literally, I went into her. It was very daughter and mom. She got basically protected because the guy barked at me and then turned and yelled words that I don't want to repeat.
No.
And both of us were like, we just knew it was going to happen that way. So anyways, we walk into the party at Bergdorf's and it's like truly a gay Zoolander. That is the best way to describe it. It was in the jewelry room at Bergdorf Goodman. So you're surrounded by all these gorgeous, fabulous, whatever. And then the center thing is literally a cage. And it's all of these metal things and all the outfits are in the middle. And all the servers were wearing mesh tops and high-waisted pants. And they had like embroidered names on the burgers and the fries. And which honestly burgers kind of slapped. Like I feel like that it's not the vibe to really eat in those settings. I ate so much. They kept coming up and I like always accepted.
For me?
He literally was like but it was just such a wild thing to behold because like truly I was like, my vibe is J. Crew and this is in even like 20 minutes before I left, I was genuinely just wearing a sweater and jeans and then I literally texted someone. I was like, I have 30 minutes to look like a certified baddie and leave this place. I had on black suede leather gloves. I just want to say that.
Oh, stop. Where'd you find those?
Isabella. She's the only way.
Slay.
Yeah,
she's the only way.
I was like, she literally was like, baddie. Look under my bed, and she knew exactly. She's like, look under my bed and pull out these black suede gloves. I was like whipping them on.
Fine.
Literally.
Honestly, that's so fun. Like, a little alter ego moment. Fun.
No, truly, I was like, this is so beyond. And then I did have, like, interesting sleep. I've been having interesting sleep recently because in my previous living situation, we had some rat situations take place. And then recently, I don't even know.
No, I haven't got this update, no.
I've been hearing
Scuffling.
Scuffling. I was going to say scuttering. I don't think that's a word, but something close to that.
Yeah, something in that realm.
Something in that realm. And I've been hearing it along the ceiling. And I just know the sound so clearly because I'd heard
the sound, yeah.
I just know the sound, so triggering. And I remember hearing it before and honestly feeling at peace because there's not really any sort of way for them to get into this building because we don't have, or into, if they're in the walls, to get into our apartment. But obviously unsettling in general. But since we don't have central air conditioning, it's not like there's like a vent they could come in through. So in some ways, I did go like shut the toilet.
That even being one of your first responses is so crazy.
I know. I literally woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, it's just an intrusive thought. I need to close this or like a rat might come out. That literally happened. Well, on Friday night, I got dinner with one of our great friends. Well, I don't know, actually, you know her as well, but she went to, she was in our sorority in college. Win! And she listens to the podcast, so shout out Win. And we grabbed dinner. And she had to work on something really quickly after dinner, and I was like, you just take your time. We were in a little park, but it was given a rat infestation, and I'm not trying to do that. So I just put my feet up and then played like this 9-hour loop of rat repellent noise. And it's literally the most high-pitched frequency sound that apparently repels rats. And it worked. You could see them all, and then they would run away. So that's kind of jarring, but
that's jarring. Yeah, that's good news.
Whatever works, like, for my peace.
Yeah.
And
I have to protect my peace.
Literally the comments, they're so desperate. The top comments, this guy, and he's like, I don't care if I wake up with my ears bleeding, I'll play this. And I'm just like, anyone that finds himself here is desperate, for sure. But
you guys need a group chat.
No, literally. Guys, text me your numbers because I'm gonna like start a support group. But anyways, so I go to bed that night and I remember hearing scuffling noise and I was like, you're joking. So I pull up the like an hour loop or whatever, and I don't hear anything. It's like playing. I don't hear anything. And then all of a sudden I hear so much movement. And I was like, bro. And they ran in the corner, which a lot of times is how they would like up and down.
No.
And it was just like almost confirmation of like some things in here, which I think I've been in denial. I haven't done anything actionable to change that, but I've just been in denial. But anyways, last night I did have this horrible discovery that my ceiling light, oh God, I just looked straight at it and it like honestly made me go blind. But it isn't sealed. So I've been hearing this noise that's almost, it sounds like a wire being messed with, like a zzz kind of noise. And I don't know if this is true or not, but this is my internal dialogue at like midnight last night, was that the rat has been playing with the wire. And then I literally this was my closing thought before I went to bed. What am I going to do if a rat falls from the ceiling?
Move. That's when you move to Oregon. Like, you have to resign. It's like, I got it.
I got it to literally call it quits immediately.
Yeah, that's insane.
But you know what's even funnier is that my watch told me I went to bed in 10 minutes. It didn't stop
10 minutes
me
after that?
It didn't stop me at all.
You're like, my final thought of the day is if a rat falls out of the ceiling and lands in my bed.
On me, what would I do? And I'm like, anyway, a little like turns over, falls asleep. It got me like seeing that. I was like, dang, I'm kind of a legend. Baddie.
Certified baddie in 30 minutes.
Certified baddie in 10. Certified baddie in 10.
Certified baddie in 10. Well, that's funny. Completely obsessed. I don't think that I have anything nearly as interesting. I went to ACL this past weekend for like the Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, girl, what are you talking about? How was ACL?
It was honestly like my
Did you see anyone fun?
Yeah, I think I saw all of my dream people besides like two.
Did Olivia Dean play?
Yes. Yes. It was literally my dream. That was like
what was her best song?
On Saturday. Literally every single one of them. She slayed.
But which one hit?
Okay, Love You Bye. Nice to Each Other. obviously, Man I Need.
Yeah, of course.
House Down. Carmen, which is an older song of hers, is about her grandma.
I like that song Slowly. Have you heard that song?
I haven't.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Heidi sent us that one.
Sorry.
I don't think she played that one. I was literally just listening to it. But Carmen's, like, about her grandma, and she, like, took a second and, like, explained it before of, like, her grandma was an immigrant from, I think, the Caribbean, I could be wrong, to London, and then now she lives in London, and so it was just kind of, like, shout out for, like, standing on the shoulders of the people who have come before you, and, like, everyone has their Carmen, which was, like, really special to connect with it, like, deeper, which was sweet.
Yeah, that's fun.
It was so fun. We saw, like, the Favors, like, Phineas and Ash.
I was just playing a song for Bella, and that girl looks like Margot Robbie.
Oh my god, yeah. That's what we said the entire time. We're like, that's Margot Robbie.
She's gorgeous. I mean,
gorgeous.
Girl.
I know.
Marry me.
Literally, I guess she's getting married next week. And so this is like it was her last show of the year. So cute. Literally so cute. She killed it.
She was
Role Model killed it. Hosier killed it.
Oh,
Olivia Dean killed it. And then we watched
That's
Doechii,
a good lineup.
Joe, and Sabrina Carpenter, I think.
Wait, these are like the best people ever, honestly.
I know.
That's actually the best.
It was the kind of
lineup
the best
I would have ever. If Gracie Abrams was she there? I feel like that's the only other one that I feel like would have just like been a perfect round out, especially with that line. Yeah.
No, literally. I was in my camera roll today because I was like screen sharing on FaceTime with my sister, like the updates and things.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is hard to believe that I saw these people. Yeah, it's just like it all happened so quickly that it's like honestly not easy to digest. But it was
what's the ACL
great.
vibe? I actually don't really know.
Dust. I had to use my inhaler for the first time since college.
I don't even remember you had an inhaler.
I don't think anybody did.
You're like, putting that out.
I know, I feel like I like...
Let me hit my vape. It's your inhaler.
It's my inhaler. Good thing I brought this. No, I didn't bring it because I haven't used it in forever. So the entire time I was just, wow, my life would be different if I had my inhaler right now. So that's an
crazy.
Update.
Are people, is it giving Coachella or is it more country version?
It's a little bit more country. I don't know. Kind of an element of it was giving Coachella. It's very Austin Western.
I feel like Austin's swaggy.
It's kind of swaggy.
They have like an LA vibe to them, in my mind. I don't know. Never been to Austin, but love that city more than anything.
I know. I'm like, part of y'all just get it down there. Literally,
I know.
We found Dory and Kira from college, and we like watched Sabrina Carpenter with them, and literally, like, they know,
so fun.
Because I said this to their face, but I heard more of them trying to convince us to move to Austin than I did of Sabrina Carpenter during that concert. Like, seconds they're like, wait, but why don't you live here? And we're like, just, Sabrina Carpenter.
It's great cue, but
I have to lock in.
Did you play any of her new stuff or did she play old stuff?
She played 2 old songs and then like pretty much everything else new.
No, did she play Nobody's Son?
No.
Oh, did she play
I don't think so. No. But also, it's like...
Sugar Talking?
No. I have no idea. I don't know what she played if I'm saying no to all these. She closed with Espresso. She brought out the Chicks, and they did Wide Open Spaces together.
Oh. The Dixie Chicks?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not allowed anymore? I don't know. It's just the Chicks?
Maybe the Chicks is someone different. I have absolutely no idea. The Dixie Chicks, though. And they played Wide Open Spaces. Life-changing.
Oh, dreams. Yeah.
And then they sang all
I've been
together.
obsessed with the Landslide cover by the Dixie Chicks.
Ooh.
That one
gets
me. It's like something about the banjo. I don't even know if they have banjo in it. I keep attributing...
You love an acoustic guitar. Like, an acoustic instrument is like your kryptonite.
I know. I love a strummy. One of the girls in my old living situation, like they... Since they know more about music, they were like, you like even like this specific like strum pattern. Because like every song I would show them would have the same
strum pattern.
I was like, sorry, I'm basic and like only one strum pattern.
Sorry, I'm predictable. Jeez, let a girl live.
Literally. Dang it.
Oh, stop.
So,
that's so fun. Well, that might be all that I have.
Okay.
Thanks y'all for watching episode 10. See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.